Hi guys, happy Monday. Hope everyone's doing well. So just a quick few tidbits of information that I'm going to go over with you guys today. This weekend, I had a great weekend of bookings. This was the first full normal weekend of bookings. I'm sure a lot of it had to do with a combination of things. Number one being Friday, the mandates really loosened up here in Southern California. A lot of the restrictions were lifted. Beaches, trails, parks, and things like that began to open up again. So I think that really put a pep in people's step. So they're excited to get out. We had great weather and it was Mother's Day weekend. So I think with the combination of all these things, it really turned out to be a great weekend. I had pretty good prices on my cars, I would say higher than average. And the biggest indicator that it was a great weekend was because I had cars that came back on Saturday and then got booked back to back. So that kind of showed me that there was a lot of people in the market who were looking for cars and they were willing to pay the higher price in order to rent out a nice car and take it out for the weekend. So that was really good. I also had a lot of my weekend trips extend into Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So a lot of those extensions are still out there. And again, like I said, in the last couple of months, about 70% of the days on my calendar that got filled up were from reminding people to extend their trips. And that continues to be true so far now that we're through the first week and a half or so of May. So definitely take that little bit of effort and remind your people that cars are available for extension, because people are definitely biting at that. And it's a great way to fill up your weekdays, especially the way that I'm doing right now. Okay, so one thing that I came across a few times this weekend was people with expired driver's license. And these are recently expired driver's license. And that's because of what's been going on, the DMV is not being open. And there was a mandate passed in California where you have a 60-day extension on expired car registrations, having tags on your cars, and the renewal of driver's licenses. So with that said, I wasn't exactly sure what Turo's policy was on this, and I definitely didn't want to have to cancel any bookings because, as we know, March and April were incredibly rough, and I'm trying to make up for that as much as possible and really keeping my fingers crossed that May is going to be a great month. So I reached out to Turo's verification live chat, which I'm going to include the links to all of this in my description down below. And I got in touch with a support agent. I did ask them what we can do in this situation, and they did say because of the mandate that was passed in California that those licenses are considered valid for if they fall within those parameters. Now, in my past video, I did put in a link to the description of exactly what the executive order was so that you can make sure you have the accurate information, and it outlines exactly which dates this applies to, and I believe it was March 16th to May 31st. So if your license expires anywhere in between there or your registrations, then you have sort of that grace period of the 60 days. I will again put that in the description below. Now, if you are not in the state of California, definitely check with what's going on in your state. And also, as an extra measure, just to be super sure, get in touch with Turo's verification live chat, which is dedicated to verifying people's IDs when they are renting on Turo, and just make sure that it applies to your state as well so that you don't get caught in any type of risky business, especially if something were to happen and then a claim happens and then next thing you know, you're not covered. So you just don't want to take that risk. And again, I'm going to post all of this, which when I was going through all of that, it led me down another rabbit hole of really reading through the details of what is required when you're checking a person's driver's license. I recently have had people comment that, they had a picture of the person's driver's license, but they didn't upload it to the reservation trip photos upon check-in, and a claim happened and they weren't covered. Now, I cannot say for certain if that's exactly what the deal is when it comes to claims, but what I can say is if you are doing any contactless handoffs, any check-ins or checkouts, meaning virtually, meaning you're not there meeting your guests and verifying their licenses in person, you have to, it states it clearly in black and white on Turo's FAQ website, which again, I'll post in the description. You have to post 2 photos to your check-in photos for that reservation. Number 1 being of the guest's driver's license, and number 2 being of the guest holding their license and taking a selfie of themselves. And you have to make sure that you request this within 24 hours of the start time of the reservation. The guest has to upload these photos before you can give them the key. Do not give them the key or the car if you do not have this information. Then I also came across a guest who had an expired driver's license, but he had an interim paper license with him. So he sent me copies of everything. I got the license, I got the selfie of him holding the license, as well as his paper interim copy, and everything checked out. But what I read on the website is that if somebody has a interim driver's license, that interim driver's license has to be valid for the length of the reservation. So it can't just be valid on the 10th, but then they have the car booked to the 15th, but the interim license expires on the 12th. That does not validate according to the website. Now, I did not see that same stipulation for an actual driver's license, so I'm not sure how that works. It did not say, but it said that specifically applied to the interim driver's license. So just a few pieces of information to really be aware of when you are doing your check-ins and meeting with your guests or doing virtual handoffs. Make sure you are double, triple checking those driver's licenses. I used to miss expiration dates all the time because, especially in the beginning when you're not used to doing this, it's very easy to look over that. So you want to make sure that the first and last name matches up, the date of birth matches up, and that it is within the calendar month that we're in and the dates all line up. Super important. Okay, so that's that note in terms of verifying driver's licenses. And then today Turo sent out an email. It's their May email, kind of just letting us know which fresh features they have. And I'm a fan of a lot of the changes that they've made. Now, if you didn't know, a 1-day rental on Turo is considered 26 hours, which was always confusing to me and to guests. And you would have to explain it like, oh, it's every 26 hours. And even with the billing, it was confusing. So they finally changed that as of Wednesday, May 13th. So starting this Wednesday, they're going to shift that back down to 24 hours. So a day will actually be a day. And if your renter extends, then they get charged for an additional day. Definitely just makes it way more easier to navigate, makes it make more sense on the renter side as well. Initially, they had it 26 hours just to give guests that little bit of room in case they're running late so that they don't have to pay for an extra day. But this does make accounting easier. And I would imagine that this is also a good sales move, a good revenue move on Turo's end as well, because that will help them capture revenue by way of people booking an extra day if they need just a couple of extra hours. And I'm sure they're heavily focused on driving revenue and sales right now, given the current climate that we're in. All right. Next is the changes with the discounts. Now, this was a pain point in the past, even for me, because of how the discounts would be applied. So if you had like a 7-day discount, which was previously the options, or a 30-day discount, and people booked, days that were less than those time frames, and then that discount would retroactively get applied. And it was just very frustrating because then you didn't understand why the discount was being applied on, say, a 20-day trip when you only offered it for 30 days or more. I hated that. It bugged me. And so I'm really glad that they finally changed this. So I'm going to read this to you guys so I don't butcher this. But basically it says the new 3+ day discount retroactively to extend trips is less than ideal, since sometimes the calculus makes longer trips less lucrative than shorter trips for hosts. To make the math balance out better, starting Wednesday, May 13th, additional discounts will be based on the number of new days added to your trip instead of the new total trip length. So if a guest extends for another 3 days, the 3+ day discount would apply. But if they extend for just a single day, they will pay the full price for that single day, regardless of the total trip length. What I've really liked about this 3+ day discount is it really, as a host, allows you to fish for 2 types of rentals. One is for that 3-day rental, right? Gives people that incentive to book for 3 days, which is usually the most popular amount of days that people book for. Or it allows you to fish for that 1-day booking at that full price, because sometimes people just need a car for 1 day. Before, it was hard because you're trying to anticipate what the week or the weekend is going to bring based on trends. And so, you're either trying to fish for that 1-day rental at a higher price or that 3-day rental at discounted rates. And it gets a little confusing, especially when you have multiple cars and, the bookings aren't maybe coming as fast, or you find yourself on a Saturday morning and your cars aren't booked and you're trying to get those bookings. So now this way allows you to really attack both renters that might be looking for either a 1 to 2 day or a 3-day booking, and you have a chance at getting both without having to sacrifice your pricing. So I was really glad to see that as well. Other than that, that's about it in terms of the updates that I thought were important. One thing that I've noticed is that February was the last month where they reported the monthly metrics, which they do every single month since this whole pandemic crisis happened. I personally would be highly interested in seeing what the March and April metrics look like. Obviously, they're not going to be great, but nonetheless, I think that's still interesting to see what those numbers are. I would like to see them, but they have not sent them out. And usually, as this email came out today, those metric emails usually go out around the 11th of every month, and they have not come out in the last couple months. And I don't know if they'll do one for May either, but I, for one, would love to know what overall the average sales look like for different hosts, but we have not seen that. So Turo, it would be great if you guys sent that out. On that note, that is it for today. I gotta wrap it up because I actually need to head out, but again, if you guys have any questions or comments, definitely leave them down below. Check out the description for all the links on the driver's license verification. You don't want to let something really dumb like that be the reason why a claim gets denied. And, with all the sort of the mindset out there about the way that claims are handled, you just want to be vigilant. Make sure you're doing your part in the way that it needs to be done. And again, remember, we're all playing in someone else's marketplace. These are someone else's rules. And if we choose to play in them, then we got to play by the rules that are there in black and white. Do I think that Turo could do a better job in terms of education and really keeping their host in the know of, hey, this is what you need to make sure that you're doing? Definitely. I think that's probably the most crucial element and the number one thing that they are missing. I think if they did provide that education, we would have far fewer instances of host frustration when it comes to the way that claims are resolved. So, you got to put the time in and the effort in to make sure that you are really doing the research and learning for yourself what the requirements are. Just like in the instance of this driver's license, even after doing this for so many years, I myself was unsure, and that's what kind of led me to Turo's FAQ page. And I pretty much read every single link that had anything written about driver's license verification, because I wanted to make sure I was doing it the right way, especially since I'm doing contactless handoffs. So you just want to make sure everything checks out. All right, guys, I probably won't get back to any comments till at least tomorrow. So if you left me any comments over the last few days, I have not forgotten about you. I will get to them hopefully by tomorrow and get many of your questions answered that have hit my inbox over the weekend. Take care, guys. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.